Welcome back, everyone, to Aspire to Lead, where we will be discussing the visions, inspirations, and experiences from top educational leaders. My name is Joshua Stamper, and you can connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joshua_Stamper.
Well, I'm super stoked to see where we go with this particular conversation. Now that we've hit the record button, Josh, and we were talking before and we hit the record button that we really aren't too sure exactly what we want to talk about. We did this last year, a shared episode. It's certainly going to be a lot of fun to do another shared episode, get it out in August as everybody's getting ready to go back to school. So for the leaning into leadership side, I will say thank you for joining me on my show.
Yeah, I'll return it and say thank you for being on Aspire to Lead also.
Yeah, folks, whether you're watching or you're just listening to this particular episode, this will be really interesting. Josh and we got together last year.
Yep.
We did this. We talked about. I think we did stuff that was maybe for new leaders. It's an area that
Yes.
we both lean into. And honestly, I mean, I never did ask you about your analytics on our side. It was a really successful episode. I think
Mhm.
people really really tuned in and enjoyed the fact that we were both sharing some words of advice, and I think we actually answered some questions that people
We did.
had
Yeah.
sent in to us. So I'm just kind of curious right now. I mean, let's maybe just kind of start off with talk about what you've been working on lately. I mean, aside from I know you've been doing some camping and that kind of stuff, like true summer dad stuff, but talk a little bit about like what you're working on right now.
Oh, I'd love to, Darren. Well, first off, buddy, it's great to see you. It's been too long, but
Yeah,
I've been in the
yeah,
mountains with my
likewise.
family. We have hit the 1 year mark of living in Colorado, and it has just been a blast. So we've been up in the mountains, Rocky Mountain National Park. We were camping. We were just over at Mount Princeton and Lost Lakes. So absolutely love. And you'll probably hear, my family in the backgrounds at some point, especially my 2 year old, as we're recording. I've been crazy busy with just meet with school districts and excited about August because I'm going to be, keynoting and kicking off the school year for a lot of folks. Right now, specifically with what I'm speaking on is really about mental health, about healthy habits, and then also just how to just be a more impactful leader as you know, and I use this analogy a lot, is like it just feels like you're riding a bike, but you're on fire, the bike's on fire, everything's on fire, and
Yeah,
you're just trying to get through it all each day. And
right.
so just using my own experience to kind of help through, the pitfalls that we so often see in leadership and just kind of how to balance that. Because so often as a leader, I've got a big family and I felt like I was giving everything at school and being able not to really provide much to my home life. And so just kind of helping leaders through that. And then in addition, I'm writing a second book with the wonderful Charlie Peck. So we're working
Yeah.
on a project called The Language of Behavior that we're working with Jimmy Casas and Connected Ed, and hopefully that'll be coming out here in the near future in the fall.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spectacular, man. And you know what, you hit it on the head. The amazing, the spectacular, the unbelievable Charlie Peck. What an incredibly talented human being she is. I don't think, I know we are both incredibly blessed to have the connection that we have with Charlie Peck. So, Charlie, if you're listening, Josh and I will both accept your donations via Venmo or PayPal after that. So, no, we think the world of Charlie Peck. We really do. She's certainly a star. I've been doing a lot of work over the last few weeks, last honestly few months with leadership teams and really pouring into helping to grow those teams. It's something I've been talking about quite a bit here on my podcast. Talked about actually on a few other people's podcasts. Just that finding what it takes to be a highly functioning leadership team. We pour into the individual leaders, and it's super important that we do that. But if the individual leaders don't come together and be an efficient leadership team, and not just be efficient, but also be effective, then what we tend to find is they never really achieve what it is that they're hoping to achieve. And so I've been pouring into a lot of leadership teams around the country. I've got a handful of those coming up in August. My work actually in August, Josh, has shifted a little bit. I've only got a couple of the, come and just kick off our school year kind of thing, but I have a bunch of the come work with our leadership team in August to get us ready to go to start the school year, which I absolutely love doing that work. I love pouring into the teams, and I'm working on two new books. I think, I've talked about here on the show that Katie Kinder and I are doing a book on classroom culture. We hope that'll be out early 2025. We're actually blocking time in September. Katie and I are both so busy in August, but we blocked time in September for both of us to actually sit down and write and actually get some stuff done in that book. But the second book that hopefully I'll have sometime in 2025 focus specifically on the leadership team stuff that I'm talking about here. So, but we were talking about like we didn't know where to go with this. I'm curious. You talked about, and I love your analogy. It's something that just it makes me laugh. And when I talk about the firefighter versus leader piece, often I will give you credit. I really do. I'll say, the great Joshua Stamper refers to it as, it's like riding a bike, except the bike's on fire and you're on fire and everything around you is on fire. I wonder if maybe it might be a benefit, especially for our early leaders, those ones that are maybe just starting out, or maybe this is year two. Actually, year two is probably even more beneficial than year one. Maybe let's talk about some strategies and some ways to stop running around trying to put out fires. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that take for
Oh
today's
my
show?
goodness. That could be an hour conversation in itself. No, I just think
Oh,
just
easily.
having just those, right? Those healthy boundaries. And I think in year one, you don't know what you don't know, right? So you're just trying to like not drown. You're just kind of treading water and trying to figure out
Right.
how deep is the pool? How big is the pool? Where am I swimming to? All these things as far as the analogy goes. So, year one is just chaos and it just feels like it goes by super, super fast. Year two, you start to understand like, okay, I understand what the most important pieces of the job are. What are the expectations? What are the procedures, right? With that, though, I learned that I needed to start having people assisting in creating a boundary because if I didn't, and this is what happened in year one, was I could barely get out of my car, and I had people attacking
Yeah.
me with their problems. And the culture, unfortunately, at the time was, I have a problem. I'm going to dump it at your feet and I expect you to
Yeah.
take it on and solve it for me, and I'm going to walk away feeling much better. And as a new leader, I wanted that. I wanted to put the cape on. I wanted to be Superman. I wanted to solve everyone's problems. But what happened
Yeah.
was I was working insane hours. I was not taking care of myself. I was very unhealthy. And what happened was I had zero energy and I
Yeah.
was not helping anyone, including the people that were, seeking that
Yeah,
advice
you,
or the
you
problem
probably got to
solving.
the end of your day and probably like if you got home, your wife probably would ask, hey, how was your day? What did you accomplish? And you probably could be like, I survived. That's what I accomplished today. I have
I
no
looked like
idea
it.
what I did. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
I
me.
was losing
That was me
weight. I
too.
was losing sleep. I mean, I was a hot
Oh,
mess.
yeah. I wasn't losing weight. I was gaining it because, for me, it was, eat something unhealthy, maybe on the way to
Yep.
work. Typically, I didn't eat breakfast. It was, I knew where the Pop Tarts were hid, or I, could go and have a, well after lunch hour conversation with the ladies in the lunchroom, hey, do you, please, do you still have any, spicy chicken sandwiches or whatever, right? So I wasn't eating healthy. I wasn't putting in, insane hours like you. I loved your analogy with the swimming because I've referred to it so often. Year one for me was breathing through a snorkel, but for the most part, it was really full on scuba gear, right? Like, I mean, the water was rushing in the top of the snorkel. I was so far underwater. And I don't know why. I really don't know why. But early career leaders, like every single one of us almost, that's what we do. And I think you hit on it pretty well with, like we want to take it on. We want to solve their problems. And maybe we should be upset with the people who run master's programs around the country because like they keep banging in our head, you need to be a servant leader. And you do, but the misnomer, I'm curious your take on this. The misnomer to me about being a servant leader is doing everything for people, when in reality, I think that's a disservice. I think we're taking away their ability to solve their own problems. So I want your take on that one.
No, I love that you said that because that's exactly what I realized was that I was actually doing a disservice to the culture of the school because I wasn't teaching people how to solve problems. I was teaching them to essentially have someone else save them, right? And so that that just creates more and more problems to stack up because what I was going to say is that, I think I didn't really get that until my principal pulled me in and saw what I was doing and was like, hey, this isn't really helping anyone. Like, this is a misconception that you've built upon yourself. And what's happening is you're getting burnt out because of it. And so um, your cup is dry. You can't pour into anyone else. So instead of, feeding everyone, and she used the analogy of like, you got to teach everyone to fish, right? So, let's start to use this as a coaching opportunity. You can still spend time with them. You can still listen. You can still be a servant, but it just looks different, And so once we start to listen to what's going on as far as the problem, then kind of reconstruct it back to them as far as this is potentially what's occurring, but then also making sure that the culture is that they're bringing a solution with the problem. So the expectation is they're coming with, hey, I have X, Y, and Z as far as a solution. Do these work within the confines? Because as we know, not every solution works within the campus or the district. And so then we can start to massage, okay, what does that plan look like? And that way you're giving ownership back to them to say, yes, this is a problem, but you've got what makes, potentially a great solution, and maybe making some tweaks. But it's not about taking everything on yourself. It is being a coach. And I think that still is a form of serving.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcast. Now let's get back to the episode.
I struggled so much with throwing on the cape. I mean, I call it Superman syndrome. And
yeah, totally.
That was my thing, I mean, I guess that was my shtick, right? Like, and for me, so I'd been an assistant principal in that building for 5 years. And so when I became the principal who had hired me, a wonderful guy, absolute wonderful guy, very, very strong leader, but he wasn't the instructional leader of our school. He was much more the manager of our school. A little bit more of that older school type of principal. And not that he couldn't probably have been an instructional leader, and he probably was at a point in his career, but that became something that was delegated. And in that particular case, it had been delegated to me already. And so when I was hired as the principal, my superintendent said, Darrin, I need you to be the instructional leader of the school. And Josh already was. And it you talk about it made me pause significantly, and not in the moment. And I probably should have just asked him, but where my head went, and this is that early career leader thing, right, was, oh, so I have to keep doing everything I've been doing and then also take on being the principal. And I was resentful actually that year towards a couple of my assistant principals, because I'm like, man, they don't do anything. And I'm getting angry that they don't do anything. And that was my fault. I didn't give them anything other than discipline. They had discipline. And we'd done so much work on our culture that discipline wasn't a huge, huge thing for them. So, I mean, I really did. I mean, I resented them. What was a good relationship became a pretty negative relationship. And for the most part, that's been mended at this point. But yeah, that was on me, because I just thought I had to do it all. And I was hell bent too on proving I was not my predecessor. People would say, well, Randy didn't do it that way. Well, I'm not Randy. And you know what? That was a bad thing too, because Randy did a lot of damn good things, and I undid some of those things. And that was just a mistake. And I hope that new leaders. I just had this conversation honestly with Sean Gaylord on my podcast. He and I did a home and home not long ago, and Sean was talking about that transition and how just imagine if you had the opportunity, if you're coming into a new principalship, like he's coming into a new principalship this year himself. Imagine if you have the opportunity to sit down with the person who's going out and just really talk things through, and that kind of thing. So I would think if anybody has that opportunity, what a blessing that would be. So you could kind of learn the ropes from them, and not necessarily take on everything that they tell you. I mean, that type of thing. But I don't know. I think there's value in understanding who you're following and knowing what it is that you're getting yourself into. I don't know. I'm talking a lot right now on this.
No, I actually wanted you to talk more, Darrin, because you've referred to the Superman syndrome and putting that cape on, and we have both done that in our
Yeah.
leadership career. So when was the point when you realized, shoot, like maybe, this is a pride thing, this is an ego thing,
Yeah.
this is killing me, I need to take the cape off, or maybe change my suit? Like, what was that point
Right.
for you? And then what were some changes that you made? Because I know there are people right now that are reflecting and going, you know what, the leader I was last year almost killed me, and I can't continue to do
Oh
that.
yeah.
I need to make some changes. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing kind of your experience, and what were some healthy changes that you made moving forward?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. To be honest with you, it was my superintendent retired, the one who hired me. Wonderful guy, great leader. I learned a lot from him. Our assistant superintendent retired, one of the best mentors I've ever had. And so we had this whole new cabinet that's coming in, and the new individual that came in as the superintendent was a real strong believer in leadership coaches. And like from the very beginning, he's like, I'm hiring a leadership coach for every one of you. And honestly, most of the building principals and superintendent cabinet, I think we're kind of resentful for that. I think they're like, what is he saying? We're not doing our job well or whatever, right? So there was this, negative connotation, which exists still in many ways around leadership coaching. But I was like, oh my gosh, sign me up, and like get me somebody now because I'm dying here. I at least was able to look myself in the mirror and say, look, bro, you're struggling right now. You are struggling. I had no idea how to fix it though, right? And even with conversations with my secretary, who was just an absolutely incredible human being, I forever will be grateful for my relationship with Marilyn. She could see it too, but she didn't know how to help me fix it. And when my leadership coach came to my school the first time, that was probably the day, the moment that it clicked. That was, you've probably heard me tell this story before, but it's so good it's worth telling again. We met in the parking lot at 7 in the morning or 7:15 or whatever. We walk in the front door of the school, and it's probably 800 feet down to my office, and probably had 8 or 10 teachers stop me. Darrin, I need to talk to you about this. Hey, did you see my email? Hey, I'm concerned about this. That kind of thing, right? Probably had 5 or 6 students who needed something from me, and get to my office, and there's Marilyn, and she's like, okay, I've got this, I need this, you got a phone call for this, and you've got this group of parents out front really angry at one of our physics teachers, and they insist on seeing you. And then I looked at my push pin board, and it's littered with notes. And I mean, it was Monday. That's what it was. It was just another Monday, right? I mean, that's what it was. That's exactly how every Monday plays out for most leaders across the country. It's a different story, but the same story every Monday. And I started going to work on putting out the fires, and taking care of this and running from this crisis to this crisis. And I got the parents, who wanted to complain about our physics curriculum to at least meet with one of my APs instead of me. And I mean, it probably took a good 45 minutes to an hour to get everything, like simmered down, right? Like to a slow burn. The fire wasn't out. It was just a slow
Yeah,
burn.
the fire was gone.
Yeah. No, no, the fire never goes out, right? But
No.
yeah, I turned around, and I mean, I'm expecting my coach to be there. We're going to sit down. We're going to have a cup of coffee. We're going to like talk shop. And nope, he wasn't even there. I'm like, asked Marilyn, I'm like, where the hell is Tom? She's like, he's down at room 324. He said, grab a notepad and get your butt down there. And I'm like, okay. When Marilyn said stuff like that to me, I'm like, okay, you got it. I'm going. And down to room 324 or whatever room it was. I get down there, and Josh, he's doing walkthroughs. And I'm like, bro, I don't need you to teach me how to do walkthroughs. I know how to do this. Like, what are you doing? Right. So I stay in the room, I do my walkthrough, whatever. And then he gives me the little, like the nod, like, okay, let's go out in the hallway. He's like, okay, tell me what you saw. And I'm like, seriously? This is what we're gonna do today? Like, did you see what I was just dealing with? And he said something to me right then. Josh, I will never forget what Tom said to me in that moment. I could probably walk you to the exact spot on the floor in the school where he said it because it was that impactful. He said, Darrin, look, if you want to be a firefighter, be a firefighter. But if you're going to be the leader of this school, you need to get clear on what matters and you need to start focusing on what matters and you need to put your time there. You better start delegating some things. We need to put some structures in place. We need to talk about your systems. But if you're not in the classrooms making a difference there, giving feedback, making your presence, available, spending time supporting your teachers and supporting your kids, that is your job as the principal of this school, not to put out fires. That's why you have APs. That is their job. And you need to focus on the work that only Darrin could do. And I mean, it was talk about game changer. I remember driving home that day just thinking, wow, like I need to get clear first on what matters to me. I mean, my book is the 6 things that matter to me. Like that came from that conversation with Tom, and many, many, many more. But just getting that clarity and driving home thinking, wow, I haven't been leading my school. My school's been leading me. My school has been pushing me around. My school is bullying me essentially, right? Because I am just at the whim of whatever comes next. And I'm curious to hear your story with this too, because what I've heard from so many leaders, like there was one particular blog that I wrote about the firefighting piece and about getting into the classroom, and I got like 6 or 8 direct messages from people, and they're like, I can't get out in the classroom.
Yeah.
What if something happens in the office?
Yeah.
And like, wow, you need to build some systems here, right? But I didn't have those systems, right? I mean, we were just,
No.
we were at the whim of a crisis, man. We really were.
No, I had someone ask me the same thing of like, okay, so if you were to leave your campus, let's say you go to a conference or you go to a district PD, is your school going to crumble because you're absent?
A good question. Yeah.
Right. And you're talking about systems in place. And so that was kind of a light bulb moment for me to say, I think I need to put some more systems in place and delegate some things. So when I'm off campus, because I got to a point where I felt like I could never leave. I couldn't even take a personal day if I was sick. Right. And how is that healthy? How is that healthy as an individual? Yeah. Or I want to grow professionally and go see someone like a Darrin Peppard who's going to make me a better leader and a better person on that campus for everyone. But I don't feel like I have a system in place to delegate to the other folks to make sure that's running, right? And they were saying like, you should be able to be off that campus and it run as smoothly, if not better, because of your absence. And that's a pride thing, right? That's the ego saying, well, no, I got to put I'm Superman. I'm the one that makes the campus better. And you have to kind of release that. And I always say this too, to my aspiring or current leaders, is that we don't have to be the savior. Okay. And a lot of times when we delegate things, the outcomes are actually better when we have other people in the room that are helping in that process. And some people come in with some insane ideas. But for me, I want as a leader to be a yes man. I want to say yes to as many people as I can. Now, obviously there's some things that, like I said, there are procedures and things within the district that you can't say yes to. But I want to be someone that's encouraging and to say yes, to delegate that. And like I said before, a lot of times the outcome, I didn't realize what it was going to be. And it was far better than what it would have been if I took over and tried to lead that same initiative. So I wanted to get out of the way. I wanted to say yes, but I also want to build systems like you're saying so that I could leave campus and things run smooth or better than when I was on there. And that's hard, but I think that's a focus that has to be there because that is what we were talking about before. We can't be the only one that's solving problems. Otherwise, we're going to be a lesser version of ourselves and burn out to the point where we don't even want to be in that position anymore. We want to leave education. And there's some dark spaces that I know a lot of listeners are probably in right now. I've been there. Like you said, you had people in your life, a coach, you had your secretary, you probably had your admin team, you had other people that you need to build. And maybe this is a good transition, Darrin, in regards to that leadership team and what you need to have in place to make sure that you have a culture that is helping each other out and making sure that you are your best version moving forward.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And you know what it makes me think of, kind of back to the bicycle on fire. when we think about developing systems within our leadership team, with maybe in partnership with our secretary, uh, those type of things. I think those are the things that the early career leader, it's like, I don't even know where to begin. Like
Yeah.
what do I even build a system around? I mean, I remember Tom
Yep.
saying that to me. He's like, we need to build some systems, and I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, what do you mean? I was
True.
not a systems thinker at all. I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, like I need to go through some like engineering process to figure this out. And
Yeah.
and in reality, it's just simply, okay, what are the consistent problems that you run into? And
Yes.
what are some things that can be just automatic processes? So let's maybe bounce a few of those back and forth. And I've got one. I'll go first
Please.
to maybe
Yes.
maybe set the tone. So as my time in that first year or so as the principal was going along, I would find, going from one place to another in the hallway, especially like during a passing period,
Hmm.
I could get stopped 6 or 7 times, right?
Easily.
Teachers are out, out in the hallway, out at their doors greeting kids, which is what we wanted to do, and I was appreciative of that. But that also meant that, it'd be like, hey, Darrin, have you got a minute? Darrin, have you got a minute? Hey, I need to talk to you about something. Hey, I got a
Yep.
quick question for you.
Are you busy?
And yeah, right. Yeah, am I busy? No, not at all. No, no. I just power walk like this,
Yeah.
for my health. But that was one of the first places that was like, okay, we need to build a system. Later that particular day, actually with Tom, we are gonna go to the health room, which was way down on the first floor. The offices were on the fourth floor. Weird building. The fourth floor is actually street level, and then it's cut into a mountain. So, but anyway, I mean, it's a good 5 minute walk to go from the office all the way down to the health room, and I probably got stopped at least 7 times. And Tom's like, okay, we need a system here. I'm like, oh, okay. Talk to me about that. And he's saying this when we're in the elevator going down. And I'm thinking, well, just getting in the elevator was a pretty good system. Like nobody else is in here with me. It's just the two of us. That's a start. But ultimately, what we created, and this goes back to what you've said earlier about empowering other people to solve their own problems. We started in concert with my secretary. We put a simple system in place of, hey, shoot Marilyn an email, tell her how much time you need, tell her, what level of priority it is, and, tell her when you're available, and I'll come to you. So she would just put it on my calendar, you know, hey, Josh Stamper needs to see you. It's not a super high priority. Put you on the calendar for next Tuesday during his prep third hour. Okay, cool. Now they know they've been heard, right? I wanted everybody to feel seen, heard, valued, and trusted, right? So they've been seen, they've been heard, and they've been valued. And then the trust piece is just now I need to follow through. And I always would have that meeting scheduled in their space, not mine, because it's kind of that, and this is the part of the trust piece, but also more of the value piece. That's me saying your time's more important than mine. I will come to you. Plus, it also gets me out. I'm more visible again because I'm going to them. So just building that system, people knew. I would just say, hey, you know what? I do want to talk to you, but I need to value the appointment that I already have on my calendar. So shoot Marilyn an email. She'll get you on my calendar. I'll come to you. And people really appreciated that for the most part. I had a couple of people who complained about it because they thought I was blowing them off, but it wasn't. Once I followed through, then it's a different story, right? But what would happen, this is the bonus piece to it. What would happen is often when I went to see them, it was, well, I was thinking about this, or, I needed this. I went ahead and did this, like all I had to do was validate, which 90% of the time, that's all you do anyway, is just validate their thinking. They're intelligent human beings, right? So they started to solve their own problems. That system alone, and it's so simple, it's so easy. But, you know, putting that in place, I probably got an hour back every day just through that.
Yeah, I think just communication in general, right? You've constructed expectations, and this is what happens so often, right? Is someone has a problem, they'll shoot you an email, and it's DEFCON 5, like I'm, the world is
Yeah.
ending, right? It's not really, it's not really a problem that needs immediate attention. Then after the email, they're running around the campus looking for you. then it's a conversation that happens in a hallway somewhere, and maybe they caught you in your office, and it's just wasted time. If you add up all of the time of the various communications, and maybe they're calling your secretary and they're trying to, locate where you are on the campus. I just want to say, for any leader, like, don't be a slave to your email. I think that's really where a lot of wasted time comes from, and you've built, Darrin, a system so that you're getting time back. And outside of money, time is the secondary most valuable piece to an educator, right? And especially a leader. So, like, what systems are in place? Just look at communication in general, specifically email, where I could spend all day in my office as hundreds and hundreds of emails were pouring in, and most of them weren't even needed. So, like, what systems do you have in place so that you're not a slave to your email?
Yeah, I love that. The email piece, I'll just jump on that one really fast. I delegated that too. My secretary had 100% access to my email, and all the junk that I didn't need, I never saw. And even like the angry parent, I'm mad at the physics teacher. I hate to keep picking on my physics teacher, but
Yeah,
she would just
what did that
email
guy
back.
do?
I know, right? Yeah. Uh, yeah, well, the first time, I mean, it was legit. That was what the complaint was. I don't know why I picked on him this time, but anyway, I mean, it would just be, she would just
Yeah.
email the person back, as me, hey,
Mhm.
have you spoken to the teacher yet? And if the answer is
Yeah.
no, she scheduled a meeting for him, and then she'd let me
Right.
know, hey, just here's what I did. Yeah, cool. We met,
Yep.
5 minutes multiple times a day. So just make sure you're setting that time aside for that person, and not
Yep.
being a slave to your email. I would block time on my calendar, like 3:30. Our buses rolled at 3 o'clock. 3:30, I blocked a half hour for email, and also
Right.
Marilyn would come in at that time. We talk through some things and that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
I think that's an important piece. I like how you talk about not being, a slave to your email, because it can, right? I mean, it can
Oh my gosh.
absolutely
Yeah.
tether you, yeah, to your office, to your computer. And I think it's
Can I
important
can I get on my
not to do
soapbox a
that.
little too much, Darrin?
Oh
Sorry
yeah,
to cut you
please
off,
do.
but I'm just
Yeah.
thinking,
I want to
like,
hear it.
not
No, I
not
want to
being
hear
a
this.
slave. No, just like, as far, and I talk about this all the time too, is just like, not being a slave to your email is like the worst thing you can do with your mental health is wake up and immediately grab your phone and pull up your work email. And I would say, and I offer this up, and some people are probably gonna not agree with this, but I would remove the email from your phone, because again, that just plays into that. And I've had, unfortunately, and I fought tooth and nail with this, either other principals, district leaders, to say, that angry parent emailed you at 10:30 at night and I expect you to respond immediately. No, that is not healthy for anyone, right? The
No.
expectation now that you're setting, and this goes even with your staff, you shouldn't be sending your staff email after hours, because what you're saying is that, look at me, I'm the model, I'm working so hard at whatever time at night, I'm not hanging out with my family. This is the expectation. And even if you're not saying that within the email, that is the perception that is being
Oh,
pushed out
absolutely.
there, right? And same with parents. Again, a lot of the parent emails that you get, the world is ending, I need your attention right this moment, when it's really, typically, not always, typically it's not something that needs a response right away. So I don't want you checking your email at night. I don't want you waking up and having that the first thing on your
Yeah.
mind. That is just going to create stress. It's not going to
Yeah.
be healthy for you. Remove it from your phone. Even just try it. Try to have it off your phone. You may have a little anxiety at first, but I promise you that you're going to realize that a lot of the
Mhm.
time that is on there is not needed, and that you can build systems to make it so, like Darrin's saying, other people can have access to it. Other people can assist in that. A lot of the stuff that's on there, you can teach your staff what's appropriate. You don't need to send an all campus email when it's, I need glue, right? I mean, there's so much junk and
That
wasted
was oddly
emails out
specific.
there. Oh, the amount of supplies that are requested over the years. That's where most of my white hair and my beard comes from. Is just the
Yeah.
wasted time on ridiculous things like that.
Right.
So, you can teach your staff, right, the expectations, and what's the model, right? You can have 24 hours to respond. You don't have to respond at 11 p.m. at night to a parent or to another staff member, right? So, being the person that's doing the right thing with the email or communication in general, being the model, but then also teaching the expectations to your staff so that we're getting time back. And if we phrase it that way with our staff, who's going to disagree with that? Every teacher,
Right.
every staff member, every educator wants more time.
Yeah.
That
No,
was my
I
TED
love
talk
that
here.
so much.
I appreciate
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that I was here for your TED Talk.
that.
But you touched on so many things there that I not only agree with, but could jump right up on the soapbox with you. Very often, and I know I was guilty of this for a while, and eventually I think I got better. I don't think I ever got perfect at this, but when you go in a classroom, as an example, so I mean, as a building leader, you're expected to be the instructional leader, right? You're so expected to be the one that is, in the classroom, that's providing coaching, providing feedback, not just providing accountability. All right. I mean, now there's a soapbox I can jump on right there, right? Why you are supposed to be in the classroom. But if you're in the classroom for that reason, if you're really there to support teachers and to help teachers grow, don't be in the back of the room answering email. All you're doing is just you've relocated your office. You're not in the classroom. You're physically there, but you're not there. So, when you go in the classroom, unless you have to have your laptop, don't take your laptop, right? I mean, if you have a form or something you're required to use or that you've chosen to use or whatever, that's fine. Put it on your iPad, put it on your phone. But when you have your laptop, I mean, if it's a formal observation, I get it, right? But even there, don't be on your email, right? Be dialed in on the lesson. I'll tell you, one of the best leaders I ever worked with, she's now the superintendent in the district where I was. She was a high school principal when I was there. Truly loved working with her. And when she would go into classrooms, I loved how she handled walkthroughs. She always asked two questions, and they were never the same question, but she made sure every single classroom that she went into that she asked a question of the teacher and she asked a question of the students. And it was always connected to what the learning was that was happening in the room. And you can't do that if you're not listening and paying attention. If you're sitting in the back answering email or I don't know, shopping on Amazon or whatever, I mean, be in the classroom for goodness sakes, right? I mean, your job is to help teachers grow. Your job is to go in the classroom and be curious and ask good questions and support them. And I could chase that for a while. I'm not going to, but yes, just be in the classroom for the right reasons, I guess is where I'm
Yeah,
going
for
with that.
sure. Darrin, your coach said something too about like, what are your values? What are the things that are most important to you as a leader, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, building your systems. And for me,
Yeah.
that was kind of a light bulb moment as, and I came to this realization on my own was because I was like, I'm not happy. I'm putting out all these fires. What do I need to do to change? And I actually just put on the board. But what were the things that I got into leadership for? What were my staples, right? That I needed to touch. What are my touch points, right? What am I touching every single day? It's not all of the fires coming to my door. That's not why I
Right.
got into leadership, right? And so I needed it visible, and I needed to have those passion points up on the board. And one of them was relationships with my staff. And so I built a system myself to make sure that I was doing relationship walks. When I was walking through, like you were talking about, walking through the hallways, that I was having these conversations about how to build a relationship, about who they were as a person, not about school, not about education, not about business.
Yeah.
It's about who they are as a person. And that was important to me. And so I had to, as a leader, construct something to make sure that I was doing that. And when I started to look at those passion points, when I started to have those sentences written out on my board, then I knew, okay, have I touched each one of these each and every day? And if I did, I was so much happier at the end of the
Yeah.
day driving home and in my reflection than when I was just putting out fires. And so, kudos to your coach to point that out. And I just want to kind of emphasize and highlight that because you said that earlier. That is something that I did, and it made me so much happier when I had that visible.
Oh yeah.
And then I also was very intentional about focusing on those passion points each and every day.
Yeah, I love that. I really do. And it makes me think just a little bit, just to build on that, kind of how I would do that. So, I mean, I had like, these are the six things that I think are absolutely critical, right?
Yep.
And number one, I would go at least every 2 weeks over and stand on our balcony overlooking the basketball court as a basketball coach. And in my mind's eye, I place those 6 items down on the floor. So similar to watching, game film, I'm checking in on myself. Like number one for me was and still is that we are building and maintaining positive culture and climate. And so I would, look at number one, positive culture and climate. What am I doing right now to make sure that I'm building and maintaining that? And like just seriously checking in on myself on all 6 of my items. And then the other thing that I would do is, I'm as far from type A as a person can be. I mean, my totally disorganized bookshelves behind me, you should totally give that away. But I have to put it on my calendar or it won't happen. If I don't structure my time will own me. And that's still
Yep.
true to this day, right? So I would on Sunday, I would just sprinkle on my calendar each of those 6 items. And sometimes I didn't really know exactly what am I going to do on school culture and climate? I'm not exactly sure, but I'm going to put 10 minutes on Monday. I'm going to put 10 minutes on Wednesday and 10 minutes Thursday morning, right? Just so at least it's blocked, and then my gatekeeper, Marilyn would like, there you go. You need to stick to these things. She knew what my priorities were. I think that's another big piece too. Whatever your priorities are, make sure others know. And, honestly, if you think, oh, I've never told them what my priorities are, you have. You maybe haven't told them with words, you've told them with your actions, with the choices
Totally.
that you've made, the decisions that you've made, right? So if I tell people I'm going to lean heavily into being the instructional leader of the school, I'm going to lean in heavily to leading with a coaching mindset, which were 2 of my 6, I damn well better go do that, right? And I better follow through because if I tell my people this is what I'm about, if I don't go match my words with my behaviors, I'm just blowing smoke. And all of a sudden, I'm not the leader of my school. They're not following me, right? Because I'm not, I'm not authentic and genuine and actually sticking to what I say is important. So I think that's a big piece too, right? Align your actions, align your decision making, align how you prioritize your time to the things that you truly believe are important. And that's what I was taking away from what you were saying. Like, here are my touch points. Am I getting to them every single day? And I just need to make sure I prioritize them. I think newer leaders, actually veteran leaders,
Yeah.
maybe you need to hit the reset button. If you could do that this school year, like, here's what I care about. Here's what's important to me. I'm going to align my time, my communication, my decision making, my actions to those things. And if
Yep.
you can do that and go be an authentic leader that way, whew, man, it's going to be a good year.
Oh yeah. It doesn't have to be a new leader at all. I was year like 8 in my administrative career when this light bulb moment happened. So sad to say that it took that long to realize where my priorities lied. But I was getting to the point where I didn't enjoy the job anymore. But it was
Yeah.
because I wasn't really focusing on my passions and the reason behind why I got into it in the first place. And I think the longer you get into it, I think the easier it is to get apart from why you started in the first place. Sometimes when you're a new leader, you're so close to that still. But as a veteran leader, I think sometimes you kind of get in the grind of things and fall away from that.
Yeah. So folks, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go put on your calendar right now, like October 20th. Listen to this episode with Darren and Josh again, just
Yep.
this middle section, and then put it on your calendar again for February, and then put it on your calendar again for like April, right?
April. Yeah.
Because those are the times of the year when we look up and we're like, oh hell, what happened, man? Like, I thought the school year just started, right? And like
Yep.
the fur started flying, and we're like, I haven't gotten anything accomplished. You've got to
Yep.
make sure you stay focused on the touch points, like Josh said. The things that are your priorities. Make sure you're dialed in on those. So,
For sure.
man, I think that this has been a great place to actually take this conversation. I hope that people took as much value away from this conversation as I took away from this conversation. I mean, I've known you for a long time, and we've had a ton of conversations. And
Yep.
you hit some things today I hadn't heard you say before, and I love everything that you talked about today, man. I'm so glad we got to hang out again again together today.
Yes, I always love talking with you, Darren. And yeah, it's funny how so many folks have gone through the same battles have felt the same way in leadership, have had these light bulb moments, especially our veterans. And so, yeah, man, I love the perspective that you provided, the steps that you took within your leadership journey. I feel like so many people are going to get, great value from that. And man, I just love collaborating with you. So yeah, anytime you, you call or need to have a conversation, I am there to be by your side, my man.
Likewise, man. And I'll extend that out to everybody listening. That's true for both me and for Josh.
Yep.
Anything that you need, any support you might be interested in, whether that's like, hey, I want to hire Darrin or Josh as a leadership coach, or just, man, I'm struggling with this and I'm wondering if one of you guys would just like answer a question. The answer is yes, we will answer a question. Just reach out. In the show notes of both episodes, whether you're listening on Aspire to Lead or Leading into Leadership, we've got our contact info in there. Just reach out and know that you're not alone in the leadership world, man, because it can be a lonely role.
For sure. Yeah, I love what you said, Darrin, because we can't do this alone. That was kind of the premise of this episode is you need to find your folks, right? And it could be on your campus, could be in your district, or if you don't feel like that exists, reach out to us, right? So you don't need to feel like you're on a silo. You don't need to feel alone in this journey. There are people that are there to support you in any way possible. And so Darrin and I are here for you if you need it. But for sure, find your team, find folks that can be around you in this journey, because it can be very, very difficult, especially if you're doing it alone.
All right, man. Hey, I appreciate this so very much. I love that you and I got to get together and talk on Leading into Leadership and on Aspire to Lead. So thank you so much, my friend.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you, Darrin.